Imagine you're holding onto a rope tightly. On the other end, someone else is holding it too. But gradually, this person starts pulling harder and harder, dragging you, making you lose your balance. You feel the pain in your hands, the tension in your arms. You know that if you keep holding on, you'll hurt yourself even more. But letting go, that feels wrong. It feels like giving up. Now think, how many relationships in your life work exactly like this? Many of us hold on to bonds out of fear, obligation, or simply because we were taught that cutting ties is an act of weakness. Family is forever. True friends never drift apart. You need to be loyal. But what about when those bonds do more harm than good? The problem isn't in understanding that we need to distance ourselves. Deep down, we know that already. The problem is the guilt. In this video, we'll explore the paradox of detachment. Why do we feel so much guilt when we distance ourselves even when we know it's necessary? And more importantly, how can we cut ties without carrying that weight? If you've ever faced this dilemma and feel like you're holding onto a rope that only hurts, stay with me. You'll realize that letting go is not an act of selfishness. It can actually be the greatest act of self-love you've ever made. Hold on or let go. That's the dilemma we face when we realize that a relationship is doing us harm. What's curious is that even knowing we need to distance ourselves, we hesitate. Guilt paralyzes us, and the idea of severing a bond feels unnatural. But why? Stoicism teaches us that suffering arises from attachment. When we hold on to something or someone, we begin to believe that connection defines who we are. We create expectations, project a future, and when we realize that relationship no longer serves us, we feel like we've failed. Here's the paradox. We often believe that maintaining a bond is a sign of strength and loyalty. However, staying in a relationship that hurts us is not proof of love. It's proof of fear. Fear of change, fear of loneliness, fear of appearing like a bad person. But what happens when we accept that everything in life is impermanent? Stoicism reminds us that we don't control the actions of others, only our response to them. If a relationship no longer adds value to your life, insisting on it won't change the other person. It will only prolong your suffering. Think of your life as a backpack. Each relationship is an item inside it. Some are light and useful, others are heavy and unnecessary. If you don't choose what you carry, at some point, the weight will become unbearable. The big question isn't whether you should cut ties, but what's stopping you from letting go of that rope? Have you ever decided to distance yourself from someone only to be overwhelmed with guilt afterward? Maybe you thought, what if I'm being unfair? What if this person needs me? Or even, am I a bad person for giving up? This feeling doesn't arise by chance. From a young age, we're taught that relationships, especially family and long-term friendships, must be preserved at all costs. Phrases like true friends never drift apart or family is family no matter what make us believe that breaking a bond means failing someone. But is that really true? Attachment psychology explains that we form emotional bonds as a survival mechanism. We feel connected to others because in the past, depending on others was crucial to our survival. The problem is, when we grow up, we continue carrying this need to belong, even when those relationships no longer serve us. There's also social guilt, the fear of being judged by others, the feeling of breaking an invisible rule. What if they say I'm ungrateful? What if they think I'm too cold? But here's a liberating truth. Distancing yourself from someone who hurts you doesn't mean wishing harm upon them. It simply means you've chosen your own well-being. So how do you know when it's truly time to let go of the rope? Sometimes we're so emotionally invested that we ignore the obvious signs. But if we pay attention, they're always there, showing us that the relationship no longer serves us. Here are some clear signs that it's time to cut ties. The relationship drains your emotional energy after interacting with this person. Do you feel exhausted? Do you need to catch your breath after every conversation? Healthy relationships don't suck your peace. They bring lightness. You're the only one making an effort. Every relationship involves exchange. If you're always giving and never receiving, that's not friendship, that's not love, that's a burden. The person uses manipulation and guilt to keep you trapped. If someone constantly makes you feel guilty for wanting to distance yourself, that's a big red flag. Emotional blackmail, excessive demands, and phrases like, "after everything I've done for you," are signs of a toxic relationship. You feel like you can't be yourself. In a healthy relationship, you can be authentic, without fear of criticism or punishment. If you're always walking on eggshells to avoid conflict, something's wrong. Your personal growth is being suffocated. If this person's presence in your life is hindering your growth, your dreams, and your happiness, it's time to ask yourself, why am I still holding on to this rope? Recognizing these signs is the first step, but knowing it's time to distance yourself doesn't always make the decision easier. How can you cut ties without guilt? In the next chapter, we'll explore a practical strategy based on Stoicism. Now that you've recognized the signs that the relationship no longer serves you, the most challenging part comes: how to cut ties without feeling guilty or selfish. This is where Stoic philosophy comes to help. Stoicism teaches us that although we can't control others' behavior, we can always control our response to situations. And in this case, the best response is to act with clarity and respect, both for the other person and for yourself. Here are some steps to cut ties in a Stoic way. Recognize your boundaries. The first step is to understand your own limits. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's within our control, and our emotional limits are part of that. Ask yourself, does this person still bring something positive to my life, or are they draining me? The answer may be hard, but it will be crucial to your peace. Accept impermanence. Everything in life is temporary. Relationships change, people change, and even we change. Stoicism teaches that by accepting this impermanence, we become freer. If the relationship is no longer useful, there's no reason to keep it. Detachment is not a sign of weakness, it's a way to embrace change. Be clear and direct. Avoid mental games and subterfuges. Stoicism values honesty and clarity. When distancing yourself, be direct but gentle. Explain why you need to move on without creating drama or over-justifying. The truth, said simply and respectfully, is always the best way out. Reframe guilt. Guilt arises from the idea that we're failing someone, but in Stoicism, the focus is on acting according to what is right for us, without being unethical or unfair. When cutting ties, remember you're not rejecting the person. You're actually saying yes to yourself. You're putting yourself first, something that's necessary for your well-being. Practice gratitude. Before cutting any ties, practice gratitude for the experiences you shared. Stoicism teaches us to see value even in difficult relationships. Instead of focusing on the negative, acknowledge what you learned from that person and carry that with you. This brings a sense of healthy closure without bitterness or resentment. These are some Stoic strategies you can apply to cut ties with more serenity and less guilt. However, it's normal that after this process, you may still face some emotional difficulties. The next chapter will be about how to deal with these emotions. Even when we know that cutting a tie is the best thing for our well-being, post-cut emotions can be intense. The feeling of loss, the fear of loneliness, even regret. These feelings are natural and part of the process. However, Stoic philosophy can be a great ally at this moment. First, it's essential to accept that pain is part of the human experience. Stoicism teaches us that instead of running away from difficult feelings, we should embrace them. Feeling pain doesn't mean you made the wrong decision, it means you're human. However, what we can control is how we react to this pain. What we cannot do is deny the pain or try to suppress it with temporary distractions. Stoicism invites us to use pain as an opportunity for personal growth, a moment to reflect, and more importantly, to learn. Here are some strategies for dealing with this post-breakup emotional pain. Practice acceptance. Pain is inevitable when we cut significant ties. However, the suffering that arises doesn't have to last forever. Accepting that pain is part of the healing process is the first step toward overcoming it. Remember that what you feel now is temporary. Time and self-care will help ease the intensity. Stoic reflection. Separate what you can control. In times of suffering, it's easy to focus on everything we cannot control: the other person, their reaction, what others think. Stoicism reminds us that in reality, we only have control over our actions and attitudes. So when feeling pain, remember, you don't control what the other person feels, but you control how you respond to that pain. Keep focused on your own growth. Every relationship, whether healthy or toxic, brings an opportunity for learning. Instead of getting lost in regret or self-criticism, focus on what you can learn from the experience. What have you learned about your limits? What have you learned about what you truly need to be happy and at peace? Cultivate self-compassion. After a breakup, self-criticism often arises. I'm selfish. I should have done this earlier. I failed the person. Practicing self-compassion is essential. What you did was make a difficult decision to protect your mental health. This isn't selfishness, it's self-care. Be kind to yourself during this process. Focus on the present and future. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control, which is the present. The pain of the past can consume us, but living in the present with an eye on the future gives us strength. Focus on opportunities for growth and new relationships that may arise. Detachment doesn't mean loneliness. It means space for something new. Post-breakup emotional pain is a sign that you're freeing yourself from something that no longer serves you. Don't view it as failure, but rather as a necessary part of your process of evolution. In the next chapter, we will talk about how to rebuild your life after detachment. Cutting ties can leave a temporary void, a sense of something missing. But instead of seeing this space as a gap, Stoicism invites us to view it as an opportunity to create something new. After detachment, there's a process of rebuilding, a new beginning, and it can be much more positive than you imagine. First, it's important to understand that by cutting ties, you're not losing something. You're creating space for new experiences, new relationships, and more importantly, for self-care and personal development. Here are some ways to rebuild your life after detachment. Redefine your priorities. When we cut a toxic relationship, it's essential to reflect on what's really important to us. What are your true priorities now? What do you need to be happy and fulfilled? Use this moment to reassess your values and refocus on what makes you feel good. Stoic philosophy teaches that we must live according to our own principles, not the expectations of others. Rediscover the joy of being with yourself. One of the greatest gifts of detachment is the chance to rediscover your own company. Often, we become so involved in relationships with others that we forget to take care of ourselves and nurture the most important relationship, the relationship with ourselves. Engage in activities that bring you peace and joy, meditation, reading, hobbies, or simply the rest you've never had. Cultivate new interests and healthy connections. After detachment, there's an opportunity to seek new experiences and meet people who genuinely share your values. Stoicism teaches us to be open to the world, but with discernment. Instead of rushing to replace one relationship with another, seek more authentic connections based on mutual respect and growth. Practice daily self-care, rebuilding your life. After detachment also means taking care of your mental and emotional health. Stoicism suggests we focus on what's within our reach, and one of the things within our reach is our self-care routine. Set aside time to care for your body and mind. Exercise, eat well, meditate, or simply spend some quiet time with yourself. Accept time as an ally. Time is one of the greatest allies in the rebuilding process. As the Stoic saying goes, time heals all things. As days go by, the pain will lessen and new perspectives will emerge. Don't rush. Allow yourself to heal and grow at your own pace. By following these practices, you'll begin to realize that detachment didn't leave a void, but rather created a new space to grow, learn, and live more fully and consciously. And the best part, you'll be able to maintain future relationships based on healthier and more authentic foundations. Throughout this video, we've explored how detachment, though challenging, is a powerful tool for personal development. We've talked about the signs that it's time to cut ties, how to deal with guilt and post-breakup emotional pain, and Stoic practical strategies to live without regrets. And most importantly, we've understood that detachment isn't an act of rejection, but a move toward our well-being and personal growth. Stoicism teaches us that what you tolerate, you allow. If you tolerate harmful behaviors and toxic relationships, you're allowing them to determine your life. But by making the courageous decision to cut these ties, you're taking control of your destiny, creating space for healthier relationships and for your own well-being. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut ties with someone? How did you deal with it? Leave your comment below, as your story could inspire others going through the same process. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about how to apply Stoic principles in your life, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more insights on how to live a more conscious and balanced life. See you next time.